שבים לפניך בהלל, שרים את שיר הנצח לשא. כל אשר בא לפנינו וכל אשר עוד יאמין, ישיר את שיר הנצח לשא. שמך נישא, שמך נשגב, ושמך עומד מעל הכל. כל כס, כל כתר, כל שר, כל מלך, שמך עומד מעל הכל. המלאכים קוראים קדוש, כל הבריאה תכריז קדוש, בכל ליבי אשיר קדוש, קדוש לנצח. אם נסלחו עוונותיכם, אם נגאלתם מן החטא, שירו את שיר הנצח לשא. אם הולכים אתם בחופש, ואם נושאים אתם את שמו, שירו את שיר הנצח לשא. שירו את שיר הנצח לשא. המלאכים קוראים קדוש, כל הבריאה תכריז קדוש, בכל ליבי אשיר קדוש, קדוש לנצח. שמע את עמך שרים קדוש, למלך המלכים קדוש, תהיה תמיד קדוש, קדוש לנצח. שמך נישא, שמך נשגב, שמך עומד מעל הכל. כל כס, כל כתר, כל שר, כל מלך, שמך עומד מעל הכל. ישוע שמך נישא, שמך נשגב, שמך עומד מעל הכל. Singing to the Lord a new song. And He's prayed for me in the earth. You will go down to the sea. I know that He's there in the other friends there in inhabitants. Isaiah 42, 10 through 13.
There we go. Oh, it's so heavy. Look at that. Oh my gosh, look at all those bananas.
Thanks again for joining us, all of you.
Let's close in prayer.
And let's close in prayer.
Let them give glory to the Lord and declare His.
All right.
Hi.
guys. Aloha.
Good to see you guys. Shaloha, and great to see you here. If you just came from Digital Readers Club, we had this unreal read about David and Goliath and David's birth and his history and him being pursued by Saul all in just 45 minutes. That was just
Was that the condensed version?
so
then?
much. It was Legends of the Jews. It was just so much information. We barely scratched the surface and did discussing it. So, but like I said to you, if you want to get more information, more in-depth information on pretty much all that we read today, we did do a review by our family. I think it was last year around this time. It was about this time,
Yeah,
I think
it was
this time
last
of year.
year.
On House of David on Amazon Prime, and that was for their first season that they had. We're still awaiting to have the other one be free, which hopefully will be soon, so we can watch that one. But we went really in depth. We used Legends of the Jews. We used several other extra biblical books and the Bible, of course, to explain exactly what was going on in David's life and what Hollywood added in there and what they took out, and what was legit really and what kind of wasn't. So yeah, it was a great read though. Fun information to know.
Good.
They commented that they didn't realize that, because it says in Legends of the Jews how David knew Bathsheba even before the incident with on the roof.
The rooftop.
Yes. He was the one that actually set her up, because she's a distant cousin, being from Sheba, from Ophir's brother. He set her up with Uriah the Hittite, who's from a giant clan. So Uriah the Hittite was actually the one that helped David take the suit of armor off Goliath after he killed him, because it was so elaborately locked that it was almost impossible to get off otherwise. So, and in exchange for that, Uriah asked David to set him up with an Israelitish woman. So that's why we know that Bathsheba was not from Ethiopia, as we're taught, because they're not Israelitish people there. She would have been from a cousin from David, which would have been from Sheba of Shem, which is from the land that today we call the Philippines. So that's how that worked.
Filipino bride.
Filipino bride, Uriah the Hittite.
Okay, well, I'm going to have to see if that holds water.
Well, what other Sheba? Bathsheba, daughter of Sheba, right? In Hebrew.
Yep.
What other Sheba would that have been? That would have been an Israelitish woman. Okay. Anyway, but it's great to see you guys. Oh shoot, I need to go get the prayer requests. There's 2 new prayer requests that came in during Digital Readers Club. So, no, there's in there.
Okay.
So, did you want to discuss anything? Say, yay, we're so happy, Shay, you're alive. Just a second, I'll be right back.
We are happy he's alive. I mean, by all accounts, most people that hit deers, end up, in the grave, so, or severely injured. So, coming out with a sore leg from an airbag, that's getting off pretty good, man. That's God's blessing. All right, you got it?
Yes, I got it.
Okay, well, let's go pray.
All right. Yeah, let's open in prayer first. Sorry about that, guys. I got your prayer requests that you stuck into the chat. If you guys do have any other prayer requests or updates to the requests we're going to go over with after we open in prayer, please put it in the YouTube chat in all capital letters so I can see it. And we'll go ahead and open in prayer then.
Okay, go ahead.
Dear Abba, thank you so much for this day. Thank you for bringing us here together to fellowship together and to glorify you, Abba, in all we do. We ask that you please have your hands on the technology so that everyone can hear us and that we can communicate. And we just ask that you please also speak through Noble as he'll be teaching, and speak through me as I will also be teaching. And thank you again for Isaac being able to be here and to run the technology for us. We ask that you please cover all these prayer requests we're going to go over. And we ask this in Yeshua's name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Okay, So the two new ones that came in, I'm just going to go over them really quick. Faith said that her kitty is very sick. It has tumors in its mouth and a fever. So I recommended that she do what I did with my cat when like Monkey had a tumor going on underneath his front paw, and use some DMSO. That's really, really healing for animals. They put that in horses that have tumors, dogs, cats.
Right.
I'm sure it would be fine for your cat. And just mix it with a little bit of aloe or aloe vera, as you might call it. Maybe just like half-half. If you can get some DMSO, it's on Amazon. You can probably buy it there in small quantities, or you can look on eBay also. I think I get mine on eBay. But if you could get some of that and just apply it to that thing in their mouth like several times a day, it should probably go away within a week or so. And then it won't be in pain anymore because it's kind of numbing also. Rob said that his best friend BJ, he had liver the big C surgery for his liver. So pray for his recovery.
Oh,
yeah.
my gosh.
So that's like a major surgery.
Did you know the liver totally rebuilt itself after, what was it, 8 weeks, about 2 months, all new cells. So there's always hope for your liver to be regenerated. Just got to feed it a lot of good, nutritious food, good stuff. Stop eating at the fast food places, restaurants.
Eat clean.
Eat clean, eat healthy, and get rest and
Grounding.
Earth yourself. You're gonna see wondrous things happen because it's what God set up for our bodies. You know, to eat good, to eat clean, to enjoy life. And enjoying life is going outside, grounding yourself, and then also, gosh, to seeing what God can do when you obey His commands.
Amen.
So, we have a prayer request from Benjamin Curry. You know, he says
Okay.
to pray for healing and strength. Okay, so again, we'll keep that in prayer. We don't know particularly what's going on, but healing and strength is meaning that he's not feeling good and he's feeling weak. So hopefully it's not kind of bug or something like that, but
Yeah.
definitely.
Okay.
Anything else?
We have DKNYs. We're gonna go over yours that you put in chat, sister. I think we have it in here. I hope
Yeah.
we still have it in here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll also get Shay. Need prayer that the insurance company pays off the loan
Yes.
and not the excuse me, minimum market value. Excuse me.
Okay. Let me just check really quick. Yes, we have DKNY. We have your prayer request on our list from several weeks ago. So if you can continue to keep us updated, that would be awesome. Thank you for joining us. I know it's really late for you in New York, but we have a bunch of people on the East Coast as well. And we just appreciate you taking the time to join us so late in the evening. And yes, I didn't have a name for your prayer request, but we'll go over that in just a sec. And thank you, Caroline, for putting everyone on your prayer list. A lot of people take screenshots when we do prayer requests, so you'll see them up here in just a bit, and then you can take a screenshot and pray for people throughout the week. It's great that we can pray
Is
for
this
each
Caroline Gar?
other. Yes.
That's new and will listen.
Yes.
Welcome
thank you.
to our show. Thank you for joining us.
Kaylee's dad's family.
Oh.
Pray for them too.
Kaylee's dad's family because of the memorial service.
Yeah,
Oh,
the
okay.
loss of their grandma.
Yeah. This past Monday it was. We had her on the list a couple weeks ago when Kaylee's grandma passed away. That's on her dad's side, and Kaylee and I were part of the memorial service as I played the piano and she sang, and it was beautiful. And but continue to pray for the family. That was like the matriarch of the family. She was pretty elderly, and she had an amazing impact on everyone there. I could tell there was a lot of emotion going on. So
Right.
continue prayers for her family as well. So do you want to put the prayer request up there, Isaac, please? Thank you. All right, so if you guys want to take screenshots, you're more than welcome to do that. And for prayer requests that just came in today, I will be adding these for next week as well. So Sherry, one of our moderators, asked prayer for her husband, Gary, who's had some heart issues, and with his stent, he's on a monitor, I believe now. So we'll definitely continue to pray for him and for you, Sherry, as his caregiver And I'm so glad that your knee is feeling better. Her knee is
Oh,
healed.
it is
So,
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, she actually texted that she's keeping Gary kind of quiet in his chores.
Yeah.
Well, he's having his
I
heart
mean,
monitored.
a lot of it's falling on her.
So-
So she said she harvested 16 cabbages today or recently from her greenhouse.
Oh, are you gonna make kimchi?
No, she said coleslaw.
Coleslaw. Ah,
Yeah.
well, kimchi
It's
too is
good.
good. You know,
If she
it's a
wants to,
probiotic.
yeah.
It's Korean though. So
All right.
yeah, you got to make sure you don't get him too excited though. Huh? Keep your husband not too excited. 16 cabbages is a lot to jump for joy for. So you know.
I said
Yeah.
she has a whole family of Cabbage Patch children there. She
Oh my
wants to do.
gosh.
All right, and also for Lisa, also known as YIY, a lot of you have been praying for her and for her daughter's health and their finances. Please continue to keep them in prayer. Lisa has really not been feeling well at all, and I was just amazed that she actually came into Digital Readers Club. Lisa, if you're in the chat, we're continuing to pray for your sister. Thank you again to anyone who has helped her out. If anybody would like to help her out, she really is asking for prayers, but if you feel led to help her out financially, she's a single mom raising her daughter. You can send me an email at Biblical Hebrew Hawaii, and I will give you her information. So thank you to everyone who's helped her out so far.
Yes.
Also for Kay and Grace, Kay has been coming into our chats this past week in Zen's live stream.
Yeah.
She came in,
Oh,
and
nice.
once in a while she'll have time and she'll be able to join us here, but she usually listens after the fact. But continued encouragement and protection over Grace, who is continuing to have quite a few issues and more than enough contact with her handler, which we're not happy about as Grace is only 14. All right, and Christy Frost, ongoing prayer requests for her, for this sister, for her dog's health and her finances. Continued prayers for you, Christy. And then again, we spoke about Shay, who hit a deer with his car at 70 miles an hour, and he's lived to survive he survived to tell about it. And
You sure it was him hitting the deer, or was the deer hitting him?
I don't
You know?
know.
He
I'm
just happened
just
to be
amazed.
driving on the road. You know, you never know.
I'm just so glad he's still alive, and his injuries were pretty minimum, which is some bruising, although I'm sure
Yeah.
it's really painful.
Right.
For Tammy George, she asked to have prayers for her friend Amy, who's grieving over some deaths in her family and her pet. Penny, I asked Penny, I'm not sure if she's in the chat, but she came in during Digital Readers Club. I asked how her knee is feeling. She was one of the ones that hurt her knee.
Yeah.
And just asking for prayer for her until I hear anything different. And this is DKNY, who's also in our chat. She has a loved one. Now we know his name is Simon. He's been incarcerated unjustly for 30 years. We just pray that whoever is setting him up for that will be brought to justice, and he won't have to stay in there for very much longer. That would be good. Do you want to go over
What is
some?
this?
Yes, I did. For Richie, you wanted the proper name and author of the book as it came to pass. I put that in the chat there. It should be down there a little bit
Oh,
lower.
what book is this?
This is the one I got. Zen. I found mine on eBay. It was used. Zen said that Sacred Word Publishing is going to publish it. It has a lot more information about the life of David and Solomon.
Oh,
I used a little bit of it when we were doing our online
okay.
review of House of David.
Okay. So just Clark again. I think he's doing better. I chatted with him texted with him for a little bit, and seems to be doing a lot better. So
That's good. That's good to hear.
yeah. And then spare request, our rental unit still needs to be rented out to the right tenant. Finding the right tenant is always the hard part, like finding a needle in the haystack.
Yes, it is.
So
There's many, and there needs to be one chosen one. It's been many, not applicants, but many people asking about it. Hundreds, literally, and it didn't seem to be anyone who's really serious about it. But we're just praying that Yah will send the right one at the right time.
right.
Anybody else you saw
No.
in here?
Not that I can see over here.
Okay. All right. Good to see all of our moderators. Magi No'o, we're going to be talking about you today, brother.
You're in trouble.
Your ancestors.
Manculas.
Your ancestors.
You're in trouble.
Sherry, good to see you. Tammy, of course, great to see you. Is anybody? I think Brick had to leave. He had a phone call that came in during Digital Readers Club, so probably won't see him here. But thank you, moderators, again for helping us out and always putting links and everything
Okay.
for us.
All right, and then just a hallelujah report that Isaac's nerves are still being restored as we speak. Sherry's knee is healing, and that's a good thing.
Yay,
And
that's a
Shay
good one.
again is alive after the deer accident. Again, um, that's just scary running into something like that. 70 miles an hour. Jeez. What is the speed limit there?
No,
Shay?
this is freeways. So like in the mainland, the speed limit is 70 to 80 miles an hour in
Really?
most states in the mainland. I used to go over 100. Travis Isaac. We used to rip it between California and Vegas.
Yeah.
And so did everybody else. You're going slow actually if you go 70 miles an hour.
Mm.
Pray that I don't get sick, by
Mm.
the way, because a lot of people were showing up at work sick. So.
Are you still taking your bee pollen
Yes.
and your honey and your vitamin C? Okay. We will pray that you don't get.
We need to pray for
whatever.
Leonard Allen. He saw
Oh.
Sasquatch.
What?
Whoa,
Oh.
that'll leave an impression.
Oh my
Man.
goodness.
How's the smell, Leonard?
Oh my
Heard those
gosh.
buggers smell pretty bad.
That was one of his questions in Gary Wayne's Ask Me Anything.
What?
Did the Sasquatch come from Antarctica? or
Oh,
something
right.
like
I heard
that?
you guys talk different color,
Yeah.
and Zen was talking about different color,
Gary
Oh,
was
Gary-
talking
Gary's,
about all
yeah.
these different types that could be
Mm.
considered these ape,
brown,
like
black. No,
hairy creatures.
they're not. They're hybrids.
Oh,
Yeah.
definitely Nephilim hybrids
Yeah.
for sure. But and he said they could come from Antarctica. They've been seen worldwide, but specifically in the Pacific Northwest,
Mm.
where Leonard lives. That's ironic. But okay, let's see.
That's it.
Oh, and there we go.
Done.
All right. Thank you guys for your prayer requests. All right. Adrian said it all comes out now, some kind of flying Hawaiian. What? Oh, me driving. Yeah.
Yeah, that's Lisa.
Okay. Well,
Flying
Noble's going to
Hawaiian.
be doing some teaching. I will be teaching sometime during second hour. We'll see how long
All
he,
right.
he is teaching, but great to see all you guys, and you're in for a treat.
They are. Is it
Yeah.
October? Trick or treat?
No, it's your
Okay.
teaching.
All right. Well, continuing on with the teaching on the Gospels, again the harmonizing of the Gospels and other Gospel accounts. The review again from last class was that Miriam was purified. Remember, after a woman gives birth to her first child, especially if it's a boy, they have to go through a purification process. And so she was again purified at the temple, so she could again go back and start worshiping at the temple. At the same time, she was presenting Yeshua, her son, and by presenting Yeshua at the temple, because you're supposed to present boys after 40 days and I think girls after 70. When you present them, and the whole reason of presenting them is to buy them back, or what's the word again? Starts with an
Redeem.
R. Redeem. There you go. To redeem them, because the Levitical priesthood has taken the chores over as, in essence, running everything that deals with the sanctuary and the sacrifices and everything that deals with God's home on earth, the tabernacle, or in this case, the temple. So as Yeshua is being presented and redeemed, two very, very senior citizens come to see him and realize that this is what the Holy Spirit has been telling them all their life, that they would not die until they saw the Messiah. And here, Simeon is rejoicing, taking the child in his own arms, being able to look at him, smell him, gaze into his eyes, into his young figure, and praise Yah immensely for this gift that finally has come to pass, that he would see the Messiah before he dies. And in the process of Simeon seeing the Messiah, Hannah, also known in the English version of Anna, gets to see him as well. And she was extremely old, and she was able to see him after her devotion to the temple, constantly praying and fasting for, again, the Messiah. And God gave her the gift of seeing the Messiah in his infancy, so that she could now pass away knowing that she was one of the very few to see this child. Again, Yod He Vav He rewards only a handful of eyewitnesses with a glimpse of the eternal King. And this is, again, just a great story back in Luke chapter 2. Today we go back into Matthew, okay, the first gospel, Matthew chapter 2, verses 1 to 4, and I'll have my wife read it if she can.
Sure. Now, when Yeshua was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, the Magi came from the east to Jerusalem, and they were saying, "Where is the king of the Judeans who has been born? For we have seen his star in the east, and we have come to worship him." But Herodes the king heard, and he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him, and he gathered the chief priests and the scribes of the people together, and was asking them, where would the Messiah be born?
Okay, continue, please.
Okay. And they said, in Bethlehem of Judea, for thus it is written in the prophets, "You, Bethlehem of Judea, were not the least among the kings of Judea, for from you shall proceed the king who shall shepherd my people Israel." And then Herodes secretly called the Magi and learned from them at what time the star had appeared to them. Oh, that's a good translation. And he sent them to Bethlehem and said to them, "Go inquire about the boy very carefully, and when you find him, come show me, so that I also may go worship him." That sounds like so suspect.
Oh, yeah.
gosh.
Especially the way
Can
you're
you
saying
read
it.
I love yours to have seen that.
He's so crazy.
Where am I?
But there at the top.
But I have one. But when they heard from the king, they went, and behold, that star which they had seen in the east went before them, until it came and stood over where the boy was. And when they saw the star, they rejoiced with a very great joy. And they entered the house, and saw the boy and Miriam his mother, and they fell and worshipped him, and opened their treasures, and offered him gifts, gold, myrrh, and incense. And it was seen by them in a dream that they should not return to Herodias, and they went to their country by another road.
Thank you, Isaac and Lisa.
You can hold on to it. Please.
Okay. So in an article that I found in doing my research on this, this is a very, again, popular series, dictionary series called The Dictionary of Jesus and the Gospels by InterVarsity Press. We find this. The traditions about the Magi, as we find them in Matthew, do not refer to kings, but rather to astrologers and or wise men. And the text says nothing about there being three of them, nor are they named. The term Magi comes to us by way of Latin, the plural of magus, okay, I think related to Manculus. But ultimately goes back to the Greek magos and refers to a magician, sorcerer, or one wise in interpreting the stars and or dreams. Hence the translation, wise men. In ancient Media and Persia, these magi were often associated with the priestly caste. And it has often been assumed, notice I highlighted this word, assumed in Christian tradition that these men came from Persia to find the Christ. Other conjectures about the Magi's origins have included various parts of Arabia, and it has been even speculated that they might have come from Asia Minor. This conjecture is based on the phrase, "We saw his star in the west." Should have been east, right? But this is again in Matthew 2:2. Magi in Persia would presumably have seen his star in the west. Oh yeah, okay, I guess so if they're, up east of where Jerusalem's at. Strange. The historicity of the Magi has been frequently challenged, and it has been said that their story was composed out of such Old Testament texts such as Psalms chapter 72 verses 10 to 11. Let's take a look at that.
Okay, that's one of my favorites.
In Tehillim, the Hebrew word for Psalms, chapter 72 verses 10 to 11, it reads, "May the kings of Tarshish and of the coastlands render him tribute. May the kings of Sheba and Seba bring gifts. May all kings fall down before him. All nations serve him. That's Psalms 72, 10 to 11.
That's
Any,
one of my favorites.
any comment, Isaac, Lisa?
Here, I'll do it. Sorry. Yes, this is one of my favorite psalms because it is so prophetic. Like, part of me gets angry when I read this because in Bibles it's written as a psalm about Solomon. Okay, from David. That's the little thing that comment
Underneath.
that people write in there. This
Right.
this is supposed to be about Solomon. So if someone's teaching on this and reads that, they're going to teach, oh yeah, well, yeah, everyone's going to bring Solomon tribute. They're going to bring gifts. All kings are going to fall down before him. But you have to continue reading because it's so messianic. It's like they're trying to insert Solomon in there because they just see, oh, it's from the king of Sheba. Oh, it's just, that must be like the queen of Sheba that came, to see Solomon. But it's totally not about Solomon. It's so infuriating.
Well, yeah, they infer that it refers to Solomon. But again, they're assuming that, right?
They
So,
shouldn't assume
yeah, exactly.
or presume.
Yeah. So again, the historicity of the Magi again has been frequently challenged. So composed out of Old Testament texts such as Psalm 72, 10 to 11, and also in Isaiah 60. Can somebody read that? Verses 6 to 11.
A multitude of camels shall cover you, the young camels of Midian and Ephah. Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
Ephah? Okay. All those from Sheba shall come. They shall bring gold and incense, and shall bring good news, the praises of Yah. All the flocks of Kedar shall be gathered to you, the rams of Nebaioth. Yeah? Nebaioth? Nebaioth, okay. All right, OTH. Shall minister to you. They shall come up with acceptance on my altar, and I will beautify my beautiful house. Thank you. Who are those that fly like a cloud and like doves to their windows? For the coastland shall hope for me, the ships of Tarshish first. Who? To bring your children from afar, their silver and gold with them, for the name of Yah your God, and for the Holy One of Israel, because he has made you beautiful.
Thank you, Isaac. So again, this account, Old Testament accounts of Psalms and Isaiah. You want to say something?
Yeah, keep going.
Okay. Talks about supposedly where these magi are mentioned in Scripture. And if you were to talk about the visit of the Queen of Sheba, bearing gifts from Arabia for Shlomo, also known as Solomon, it has been even suggested that the whole story is a midrash or a commentary, a Jewish commentary in the First Kings passage, chapter 10. Did you want to mention something first?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that passage in, if you know that Tarshish is like the
Isaiah.
same location, the one from Isaiah, it's like the same location as Sheba, and this is the same location as Ophir. I was just having a conversation with DKNY during Digital Readers Club because she was wondering where Bathsheba, that she didn't realize that David actually knew Bathsheba before, and they set her up to marry Uriah the Hittite because he wanted to marry an Israelitish woman. And so, of course, he set her up with one of his distant cousins who came from Sheba, as not like we've been taught that they came from Ethiopia, because they are not Israelitish women in Ethiopia. The Israelitish women would be the ones that are relatives of Solomon and David, distant relatives, but they both came from Eber. Back in the Table of Nations, Genesis 10, you can see the descendants of Eber, who's from Shem, were Peleg and Joktan, those two brothers. Peleg is where Abraham came from. Joktan had 12 sons, and those include Ophir, Sheba, Havilah. There's all these different sons, and they all traveled to the far east, to, as you go, as it says in there, to Mount Sephar, or a Mount of the East.
Right.
So then the question is, where's Mount Sephar? I mean, it's this long rabbit trail. I won't go down there right now.
Right, and I think a lot of the so-called scholars who look at this picture of who the Magi are and where they come from is something that I think they were assuming from the limited resources they had to share on the Magi.
Yeah,
But
well,
as
and it's been twisted a lot. You know, it's been twisted in the favor of what you're about to present.
yeah, so let's look at let's continue to move on. First Kings chapter 10. Does somebody want to read this? It's
Sure.
gonna be a little bit long. Okay, just so we understand the visit of the Queen of Sheba. Okay, bearing gifts again to Shlomo.
Now, when the queen of Sheba heard of the fame of Shlomo concerning the name of Yah, she came to test him with hard questions. She came to Jerusalem with a very great
Retinue.
retinue. What does that mean?
Like a caravan.
Okay, right. With camels bearing spices and very much gold and precious stones. And when she came to Shlomo, she told him all that was on her mind. And Shlomo answered all her questions. There was nothing hidden from the king that he could not explain to her. And when the queen of Sheba had seen all the wisdom of Shlomo, the house that he had built, the food of his table, the seating of his officials, and the attendance of his servants, their clothing, his cupbearers, and his burnt offerings that he offered at the house of Yah, there was no more breath in her.
In other words, she was breathless, right? Seeing all of this stuff.
Wow.
Okay.
And she said to the king, the report was true that I heard in my own land of your words and of your wisdom. But I did not believe the reports until I came and my own eyes had seen it. And behold, the half was not told me. Your wisdom and prosperity surpass the report that I heard. Happy are your men, happy are your servants, who continually stand before you and hear your wisdom. Blessed be Yah, your God, who has delighted in you and set you on the throne of Israel. Before the Lord loved Israel forever, he has made you king, that you may execute justice and righteousness. Then she gave the king 120 talents of gold, and a very great quantity of spices and precious stones. Never again came such an abundance of spices as these that the queen of Sheba gave to King Shlomo. Moreover, the fleet of Hiram, which brought gold from Ophir, brought from Ophir a very great amount of almug, wood, and precious stones. And the king made of the almug wood supports for the house of Yah, and for the king's house, also lyres and harps for the singers. No such almug wood has come or been seen to this day. Oh. And King Shlomo gave to the queen of Sheba all that she desired, whatever she asked, besides what was given her by the bounty of King Shlomo. So she turned and went back to her own land with her servants.
Thank you, Isaac. Good read. Lisa, do you want to say something?
Yes, I wanted to clarify what these almug trees are because we kind of did a deep dive on. Did you go into that at all?
I did.
You did.
Going to?
Oh no, I'm not going to.
You're not going to it. Okay.
I did some research on it. It doesn't exist anymore.
It does exist.
But but they say in the research they said no. Right there, that says.
Yeah, it's not in Babylon, that's for sure.
No, but it's
Well, it doesn't.
verse 12.
Well, in other words, they don't grow almug trees in Israel. That's what they've never been seen in Israel to this day, right? Since then. But if you look at in the history of almug trees, they've changed the name of it several times, but they're originally from where the Queen of Sheba was from, which is why she brought it.
Yep.
It's actually the national tree of the place where the Queen of Sheba is today. If you look up the national tree of the Philippines, it's called the Nara tree. It's very common. So many people have it in their yard. It's like the strongest tree for building ships because it's naturally waterproof, but it also has this amazing sap, which even Gucci and like Guess and they call it poor man's incense. They're actually taking the sap and they're creating beautiful perfume and everything. It's one of the best smelling sap you can get from a tree. So not only did she bring the incense, which it talks about from the almug tree, but she brought the wood, and that's what Solomon used to build the temple. Is that cool? The Nara tree. And
Okay.
this Nara tree wood has another history. If you go back even further before the flood, if you have the strongest wood on earth for building ships that's naturally waterproof, well, who do you think built their ark out of this particular type of wood?
The men of the East.
Noah.
Oh.
Noah built his ark of Nara wood because Nara was also from the same land before the flood. They
Mm,
naturally
that's
the
right.
land from the of Eden.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah, well, not Eden, but the garden around the Garden of Eden,
Yeah.
east of Eden, you could
East of
say,
Eden.
where Adam and Eve lived after they were kicked out of the garden. So there's a lot of cool things about that. You can look up Nara. It's Narra if you'd like to take a look at that.
Oh, thank you, honey.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. One more thing in verse 13. So there is a Gnostic text that we've read in Digital Readers Club, and I do really like one particular chapter in this text called the Kebra Nagast, but it is kind of like a falsified text as to it's talking about the wrong Sheba because they say that the Queen of Sheba came from Ethiopia. There could have
Right.
been a Queen of Sheba because there is a Sheba of Ham that's from Ethiopia,
Right.
but it said she had goat feet and it was kind of, when it says in verse 13, they said, oh, so King Solomon gave her his seed because then after she's met Solomon, she got pregnant and then they had a baby goat. No, I don't know exactly what it was. This other king that said that he's the son of Solomon and he was black, and I mean it's this whole dramatic thing.
Are you saying that in ancient history that the men were really lusting after goats?
I don't know. I don't. It's just kind of gross. He did this trick on her. He spilled some water on purpose, and then she had to lift her dress to walk through the water because he wanted to see if it was really true. The rumors about her feet being a hairy goat, and then he saw it was true. But he's still. So this is all from Kebra Nagast. I mean, I really love chapter 100, but the rest of it's kind of
Different
iffy.
than gods. Just be careful with the extracurricular books that you read out there. All right, thank you, honey. That's very interesting information. Again, I'm sure Solomon had all the women that he wanted, and more so. And
Shay has a
so,
question.
so if he wanted a goat, I guess he could get a goat.
Yes, in answer to your question, Shay, I didn't think gophers were indigenous to the Philippines. Okay, the word gopher in that text, how it says Noah built the ark of gopher wood, there is, if you look at it, it's in italics in the Bible because they replaced that word gopher. They just added a G onto the original word because it says it's not even a Hebrew word, but it's supposed to be Ophir wood or Ophir wood, not gopher wood with the G. So it's also known as Ophir wood. That's the Nara tree. They didn't really list the name of it, so I think some translators just made up this word gopher and stuck it in there, and nobody knows what it is unless you know where Ophir is at.
Interesting. Okay, thank you, honey. So these conjectures, in most cases, again, originated because it was it's been, how can I say, considered that this story was highly improbable. And why was it improbable? Because why would a Persian or a man from the East, want to come and honor the birth of a Jewish king? In this case, Jewish king that was a peasant. This is a very good question, but what Gentile would want to come and honor that Semitic king child? Well, one of my professors, Dr. Arnold Fruchtenbaum, writes, as to the origin of the Magi, there are multiple suggestions, including Persia, Arabia, and Babylon. The Talmudic writings favor Persia. Other writings favor Arabia. However, from the wider biblical record, Babylon is preferred as the localization most favored by the astrological implications of the rising of the star. After the Babylonian exile, a large group of Jews remained there, so that Babylonian astrologers could have learned something of Jewish messianic expectations and might have associated a particular star with the king of the Jews. Matthew chapter 2 raises a number of questions, such as, how did these Gentile astrologers from Babylon know that a Jewish king had been born? And then, even if they knew about it, why would they have chosen to come and worship him? There had been astrologers in Babylon since at least the time of Nebuchadnezzar and kings in Israel for a millennium. Yet, there is no record of Babylonian astrologers going to Jerusalem to worship a Jewish king until the birth of Yeshua. What was different about this infant Jewish king? Furthermore, does this passage authenticate a form of or the practice of Christian astrology, even though the Bible clearly forbids any kind of contact with any form of astrology? Well, this is where I want to read from this book again, and we talk about first the harbinger. Okay, how did the Magi know that a Jewish king had been born? How they knew is somehow connected with the star they saw in the east, Matthew 2:2. In antiquity, that a star would appear as a harbinger of a crucial point in history was not an unusual concept. Dr. Raymond Brown observes, Matthew's age would not have found bizarre the claim that a star rose to herald the birth of the King of the Jews and subsequent guided Magi astrologers in their quest to find him. Virgil reports that a star guided Aeneas to the place where Rome would be founded. Josephus speaks of a star that stood over Jerusalem and of a comet that continued for a year at the time of the fall of the city. He says, God has a care for men, and by all kinds of premonitory signs showed his people the way of salvation, and relates this to the Jewish belief that someone from their country would become ruler of the world. It is true that Pliny combats the popular opinion that each person has a star which begins to give light when he is born and fades out when he dies. Kind of like a guardian angel, huh?
Yeah.
Yet the thesis that at least the births and deaths of great men were marked by heavenly signs was widely accepted. Cicero reports that on the night that the great temple of Diana at Ephesus burned, when the light began to dawn, the Magi, of who were wise and learned among the Persians, clamored that this presaged the birth of one who would be a great peril for Asia, one who turned out to be Alexander of Macedon. Historian Suetonius records a tradition stemming from Julius Marathus that a public portent alerted the Roman people some months before that the birth of Augustus, that nature was making ready to provide them with a king. And this so frightened the Senate, the Roman Senate, that it issued a decree forbidding the rearing of any male child for a year. The birth of Mithridates and of Alexander Severus were among the many births that have been accompanied by the appearance of a new star in the heavens. Again, Suetonius tells us how alarmed the emperor was when a comet appeared several nights in succession, for a comet was popularly supposed to herald the death of a person of great importance. Superstitiously prudent, Nero fulfilled the portent by having some of the notables of his realm put to death. And what's interesting is that even when you go back to the story of the Tower of Babel, Nimrod, remember, Nimrod was told in, which book was this? Was this
The Aramaic Bible?
no? What Nimrod was told
Joshua?
that I think it was Jasher, that when Abraham's son was born,
Yeah, Yasher. Also Legends of the Jews.
yeah, that the star was seen a comet was flying across the sky, and it consumed other stars
Right.
in its path. And when the wise sages of Nimrod's court shared this with King Nimrod, he took action right away. And who was born on that very night? Abraham was born, and his father was
Terah. Terah.
Terah, right? Terah was one of the main court members in Nimrod's.
He was his idol maker.
Yeah, that, but also was a counselor. And he gave Nimrod a false story about this child that was born. Um, well, not a forced daughter. He said, yes, my child was born, but he took another servant's child and said, this is him.
Well, it was his concubine. It was
Yeah.
actually his child, but his
Yeah.
concubine had a baby the
Well,
same day as
that was a
as
sad day for that
Avram's-
concubine and for that child,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
Nimrod took the child by the ankles and whipped
Smashed
it
him.
around and smashed him against the ground,
Yeah.
the marble flooring, crushing it, totally destroying it that very night.
Can you imagine somebody doing that to poor Halo?
No, I don't want to
No, no, no.
imagine that.
No one
Oh, sorry, Isaac.
But,
Isaac.
again,
Nobody can hear you.
So this
No, I
this
know.
this
Isaac was
so-called
talking about
seeing a
something
star
awful.
was again such an alarm to especially to leaders, and when you look at Roman history, they talked about Caesar Augustus Aurelius. He was actually born during the same time as Yeshua was born, and so all the fanfare, all this the signs in the heavens were pointing to a great leader being born, and Caesar Augustus Aurelius was given all the so-called notoriety. They said, this is the one. This is the one that the Tsars are claiming was born a king. And in the meanwhile, in a manger, in a cave, the true king was being born.
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
So again, amazing what again the star, the harbinger of a star does. So it says here again, thus not only the appearance of a star heralding the birth of the Messiah, but also Herod's attempt on the life of the child would have been motives familiar to the times. But what exactly was this star? Many have tried to explain it astronomically, but such explanations fail, since nothing celestial can do what this star did. The basic rule of interpreting scripture is to always take the Bible literally, unless there is something in the context that will not allow it to be taken that way. There are 5 things about this star in this context that show it is something other than a literal star. First, it is referred to by the possessive pronoun his. It was the Messiah's personal star, and it belonged to him in a way that this was not true of any other star. Of course, all the stars are God's because he created them, but there was something unique about this one that made it the Messiah's personal star. Second, it appeared and disappeared on at least 2 occasions. What? It appeared and disappeared? Third,
Yeah, that is.
it moved from east to west. Fourth, it moved from north to south. Fifth, it literally came down and hovered over one particular house in the town of Bethlehem, Matthew 2:9. Now we know that any literal so-called star that NASA has told us about, that the nature of these stars are masses, humongous masses of burning gases, supposedly like our own star.
They're mass gas. That's what NASA's saying.
Yep, and that again,
Ridiculous.
if this star was to hover over the house of Bethlehem, it would obviously burn up this planet, because there would be a collision of celestial beings. It is simply impossible for the hovering of stars to be confined over one small house in Bethlehem. This one fact makes what Matthew described unusual. But Dr. Brown notes that while the motive of a star leading people to a destination is known in antiquity, the precision of leading them to a house is very unusual. This was not a literal star. Then what was it? As mentioned, there have been all kinds of attempts to explain this astronomically. However, all such explanations fail. Neither comets nor conglomerations of planets nor constellations can do what this star did. The explanation lies in the word heavenly, referring to the spiritual and not the physical realm. Lisa, you have something to share?
No.
Oh, okay. Hang on.
Okay. Yeah, this is a very unique star, that's for sure.
Okay, in Greek, the root of the word star means radiance or brilliance. This brilliance is the Shekinah glory. Just as the Shekinah glory was used to announce the birth of the Messiah to Jewish shepherds, it was also used to announce the birth of the King of the Jews to Gentile astrologers. And this is again Dr. Arnold Fruchtenbaum writing this. I have questions about this statement right here. Just as the shepherds knew where they were to find the stable caves by virtue of their profession, the wise men would be the first to notice a new light in the heavens. In those days, astronomy and astrology were not separate disciplines. To study one was to study the other. The other. When these Gentile astrologers saw the unusual brilliance in the sky, it somehow signaled to them that the Messiah, the King of the Jews, was born. Now, I've got to take this so-called his perspective and question it, like all the others. Where is the evidence that the Magi of the East comes from Persia, Arabia, or even Babylon?
Yep.
Why would Gentiles
Why would they be invited?
Why would they have a special invitation to the birth of the Messiah?
Exactly. They're pagan.
Okay, so keep that question in mind. Okay, let me continue reading. Okay, again, this is Dr. Arnold Fruchtenbaum's teaching on the announcement by the star. Okay, the next question is how these so-called Gentile astrologers from Babylon would have known that the appearance of a star in the heavens was announcing the birth of the coming Jewish Messiah King. Jews have known from the scriptures, but how would Gentile astrologers know? Okay, now here's his argument. There is a Babylon connection, and it is recorded in scripture, specifically in the book of Numbers, in chapters 22 to 24. Okay, interesting. There is a record of God's dealings with a man named Balaam. Okay, Balaam was a Gentile astrologer, a seer, who came from the region of Babylonia. He established a considerable reputation for himself throughout the ancient world, and it is widely regarded that he whom Balaam cursed was cursed, and he who Balaam blessed was blessed. You'll find this in Numbers 22, verses 6 and verse 12. At this point in the Exodus from Egypt, the Israelites had arrived on the border of Moab and were about to enter the promised land. The king of Moab took objection to this prospect of new neighbors and decided to take action. Again, you'll read this in Numbers, okay? The king, because of Balaam's reputation, the king called for the seer and commissioned him, for a considerable amount of money, I might add, to come and curse the Jews. 4 different times the king of Moab took the seer to a high mountain where he could look down upon the Jewish encampment. 4 times Balaam tried to open his mouth to curse the Jews. 4 different times God took over his tongue and Balaam blessed the Jews instead. In these blessings, he issued several messianic prophecies, one of which was found in Numbers 24, verse 17. And it reads this way: I see him, but not now. I behold him, but not nigh. There shall come forth a star out of Yaakov, and a scepter shall rise out of Yisrael, and shall smite through the corners of Moab, and break down all the sons of tumult. The word scepter is a symbol of kingship. It was this Babylonian astrologer, Balaam, who connected the coming of the messianic person with kingship and with a star. Archaeologists have discovered that the Babylonians kept many historical records. Much of our knowledge on the Genesis-Exodus period comes from Babylonian resources. Archaeologists have also found an inscription containing a prophecy of Balaam, now housed at the Jordanian Museum of Archaeology in Amman. All right, interesting, okay? So here again, we see how a so-called Gentile uh, seer was talking about the so-called king of Israel.
Right.
But does that make him again qualified to get an invitation to see the newborn Messiah?
Right.
Let's-
There's a comment in the chat from
Okay.
Benjamin Curry. He
Oh.
was responding to your response about how did the Magi know if they were from Babylon, like to go and how they
Right.
get an invitation.
Right.
So and I've heard this before. I think I actually used to believe this, but he says Daniel knew the prophecy and he left instructions and his wealth with the Magi to deliver for him since he was a eunuch.
Interesting.
I've heard that connection made
Oh,
before.
well, I've actually been taught on this too.
Yeah.
So, thank you so much. Let me carry on. Then, thus the star, as a symbol of the Messiah, was a connection to the Jews that they would have made. Okay. Just as God interacted with Balaam in the Hebrew scriptures, He made sure that these Babylonian astrologers would have knowledge of the star and its import. But Balaam's prophecy says nothing about when the star would appear. Okay, and so the story that goes on here is that when Daniel was in Babylon and he was praying, certain jealous counterparts mentioned this to Nebuchadnezzar
Mm-hmm.
and said that, "Oh king, this so-called Semitic astrologer
Hebrew, yeah.
is praying, and he's praying to a God that is not you, because you, Lord, O Nebuchadnezzar, have instructed us to worship you as a God, to pray to your statue, that you alone, are again the king of all kings." Well, Nebuchadnezzar had some pretty funky dreams lately. And these dreams led him to say, hey, I want these dreams to be interpreted and their explanation to be made to me. And guess what? When the interpreters were called, when the so-called astrologers and wise men were called to tell the explanation or the interpretation of the dream, Nebuchadnezzar, being on to them, says, wait a minute. If you guys are really who you say you are, you should tell me what I dreamt and what this dream means.
Right.
And they said, oh, king, never in the history of mankind has anyone ever been able to tell you or tell anyone what their dream was, no less to interpret it.
Mm-hmm.
And so he says, well, hey, look, if you're not going to tell me what my dream was, then all I'm going to say is that you guys are charlatans, and I'm going to have you guys all killed. Not just you and your families and all your wealth and belongings will be transferred to the treasury, the state treasury. And so now all of these so-called astrologers and wise men in Babylon were fearing for their lives. So what does Daniel do? Because Daniel is considered an astrologer, a wise man. So even his life was in jeopardy.
Right.
So Daniel contacts the main eunuch that issued this decree and says, give me a day to pray to my God, and I will come and see the king. And Daniel does so. And what does Daniel do? He says, oh, great and mighty king, this is your dream. And this is what your dream means. And King Nebuchadnezzar was amazed. He says, yes, yes, and yes, you are the man. In fact, you're correct in what I dreamt, and now that interpretation of that dream, I will put you in the position of the top dog,
Yeah,
the top gun,
advisors.
the top astrologer of my school of Babylonian astrologers.
Right.
Right. So here, because Daniel saved all the other astrologers' lives and the lives of their families, many of them jumped ship and converted to want to understand and know who this king or this God of Daniel was.
Mm.
And thus the story says that Daniel brought a lot of the Babylonian astrologers and wise men into a belief of the one and true living God, the God who again created the stars,
Right.
not just, is a star.
So is that documented though, that he really did bring a lot of them into belief, or is that just
No,
kind
no.
of a
This is
teaching?
again Dr. Fruchtenbaum's
Okay, so that's
interpretation.
that's an interpretation.
That's a presumption.
We don't know if
We don't
that
know
actually
that.
happened or not.
No, it's a great story, and then I'm sure that some astrologers came over, and so that these astrologers, for generations afterwards, after Daniel died, and all the other um, Babylonian astrologers and wise men died,
Mm.
that generations later, and talking about generations to the time of the coming of the king and the coming of the star, was made known to these Babylonian astrologers, and that they were waiting and waiting and waiting for this
I
sign.
used to actually believe that.
Yeah,
until I
and that
dug
was a very
deeper.
valid.
It's extremely popular.
That was a very
teaching.
valid point, and yeah, but again, we don't know that for certain.
No, this is just kind of like a assumption that somebody made, and then the teaching got pretty popular, and then the more people keep repeating the same thing over and over again, the more it sounds like it's the truth. But when you actually dig into it,
Yeah.
oh yeah,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, and you know what? That's a good point, Lisa. It merits something to look into. It's a far better story or presumption than what they say about the Persians or the Arabians, and they're thinking that the Magi came from these people groups,
hmm
but it still doesn't answer certain questions.
it's similar to the whole Queen of Sheba thing. Like, we've been taught so many times that she came from Ethiopia. The more you keep hearing it over and over and over again, the less likely you are to actually dig into it for yourself and see if this Queen of Sheba did have goat feet. If this, where in Ethiopia do they have this abundance of gold that she brought along with her? Ethiopia has never been known for any gold. Like, where do
Right.
they have almug trees in Ethiopia? You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, you have to look past what you've been taught.
Well, you have to look. Yeah, you have to look at all the evidence presented, all the arguments presented, and now make your educated decision on what it should be. So let me finish again on this part here. So in summary to the announcement by the star, we can say that Balaam connected the star with the kingship of the Messiah, while Daniel provided the messianic timetable. As a result, the Gentile astrologers of Matthew chapter 2, knew about the coming of the Messianic King. Having a timetable from Daniel and the unusual brilliance in the sky told them that the prophecy had been fulfilled. That is why they came to Jerusalem asking the question, "Where is he that is born King of the Jews?" Matthew 2:2. But why Jerusalem? And although the wise men had the book of Daniel, they did not have the book of Micah, containing a passage which the rabbis understood to be messianic. Again, and as Dr. Alfred Edersheim notes, the well-known passage, Micah chapter 5, verse 2, is admittedly messianic. So in the Targum, in the Pirkei Eliez, chapter 3, and by later rabbis, it was Micah who prophesied that Messiah would be born in Bethlehem.
Mm.
The Magi did not know that, neither did Herod the Great. So when the wise men came to Jerusalem and asked, "Where is he that is born King of the Jews?" he gathered together all the chief priests and scribes, Matthew 2:4, and inquired of them where the Messiah should be born. The answer was Beit Lechem of Yehuda. Okay, Matthew 2:5,
House of bread.
the house of bread. From the perspective of the Gentile astrologers, the logical place for the King of the Jews was to be born in the capital of Israel, Jerusalem. And that's why they went there. They questioned about the Messiah, and the question towards King Herod at the time caused a lot of grief and angst in his life, and he called these very men into his palace because he wanted to know more information about their vision. Okay, Matthew 2:7 points out that he did privately and learned from them exactly what time the star appeared. Herod wanted to know how long it had been since that star first appeared, and this was crucial in determining what age Yeshua was when these events occurred. And from his later decree to kill all the boys 2 ages 2 years of age and younger, the astrologer's answer can be deduced. The star first appeared 2 years before they arrived in Jerusalem.
Yes.
Having learned this, Herod sent the wise men to Bethlehem. He instructed them to report back to him after they had found the one they were looking for. And so now we know, that it was, again, the prophet Micah that shared where it was going to be done.
Right.
But it still doesn't answer who the Magi are.
Yes.
Because it took them at least 2 years to travel from their original
location
location
where they
after
first saw
viewing the star
Yes.
to come to Jerusalem.
Yes. There's a quick question in the chat. It goes back to when I was talking about Queen of Sheba being from Ethiopia. DKNY is asking, well, what about the Ethiopian Bible? That's a valid question, because Ethiopian Bible is legit. Like, it matches up with, it has all the extra books in it that we've been wondering
The
what
Book of
happened to.
Enoch.
Yeah, including Jubilees, Enoch, whatever. All of that is totally legit. But just because that Bible is legitimate and, it actually was a Scottish Freemason that that Trent took it back to Scotland. What was his name? Robert the Bruce's brother. Robert the Bruce's brother. Anyway, a well-known Jesuit guy went to Ethiopia, found it, translated it. I mean, that doesn't mean it's not legit just because it was translated by I guess you could say a royal Satanist, but so was the King James. That it's just they happen to be the ones with all the money to do all the translations, and then they of course are in charge of the media, so they broadcast this this is like the best Bible to read. I love the Ethiopian Bible. That has nothing. That really doesn't have anything to do with the Queen of Sheba where she came from. But the tribe of Judah is one of the only tribes that is documented in Isaiah 11, from where it talks about where all the lost tribes will return from in the last days as being from Ethiopia, or like what we would now call Africa. The rest of the lost tribes, it's pretty well documented in the book of 2nd Esdras and in some other chapters in Isaiah that they went to the far east. They didn't really go south. So, and yes, the eunuch Philip spoke with was from Ethiopia, so there's a really good chance that Philip shared all that information and possibly his manuscripts that he'd had from antiquity. We don't know. I'm just supposing.
He's
I'm not
not
sure.
carrying his library with him.
I know, but
what I mean?
somehow the Ethiopians got what we would call the Bible today, along with all the other legit books.
Yes,
So
yes.
it wasn't the
Not
Queen
to
of
take
Sheba.
anything away from the Ethiopians.
Yeah,
Right.
not at all.
Okay,
Not at all.
so good question. Good question. Here, Dr. James Dunn, again, on his book, The Jews and Christians and the Parting of Ways, AD 70 to 135, writes that while the wise men's reaction to the birth of the King of the Jews is positive, the reaction in Jerusalem is much more negative. He notes that Herod is terrified, and all Jerusalem. Why all Jerusalem? Because when the king is feeling bad, he makes it known in his kingdom. And you gotta believe me. If the king is pissed off, everybody's gonna be on eggshells, walking on eggshells. Okay. With him, in the following verses, the wise men's arrival in Jerusalem. Let's see. Let me turn the page. Herod calls in all the chief priests and scribes, and over the course of the gospel narrative, they become Yeshua's chief opponents. They perceived him, who had been introduced to them as the King of the Jews and as Messiah, as a threat, which stands in contrast to Matthew's description of Yeshua as a young child in Matthew 2:9. In fact, after chapter 2, Matthew did not call him king anymore, but portrayed him as the harmless and humble Davidic Messiah. Herod's hostility is in marked contrast to the determination of the wise men to find and to worship the Jewish king. Now, having heard, this is Dr. Fruchtenbaum now, having heard what Herod had to say, the wise men headed for Bethlehem. Because there were many houses and many 2-year-old boys, it would be very difficult to find this child. Do they go house to house like salesmen and door to door? No. How would they know which 2-year-old it was? At this point, this is where the star, that elusive star, reappeared. It came down and hovered over where the young child was. Matthew 2:9. And according to verse 11, the family was no longer in the cave stable where the shepherds had found them, but in a private home. Therefore, the shepherds and the wise men never saw each other. The two events were separated by 2 years in time. The wise men came into the house and worshipped the young child, and this was the first Gentile worship of the Messianic person, the first Jewish worship and the first Gentile worship that were initiated in the same way by means of the Shekinah glory. Then I still got a question, okay? And I question this why? Because when the wise men found the child, they were told in a dream to leave by another route. Now, I've never heard of any stories or accounts where the God of Israel speaks to Gentile foreigners. Think about that. Who has he ever spoken to? You know, maybe I'm missing something here. But why would he speak to anybody other than his own people, you know, in dreams?
Right.
Something to consider. All right. The next topic I want to talk about is, again, from Dr. Fruchtenbaum's book.
Oh, can you hold it up? Tammy was wondering what you're reading from.
And it's, again, called The Gifts.
So everyone can see. This is the book that Noble's reading from. It's from his former Hebrew professor, Dr. Arnold Fruchtenbaum.
All right. The wise men left behind 3 gifts: gold and frankincense and myrrh. Okay. And again, Isaac was reading it as incense, not frankincense. Lisa, again, pointed out that this was a late insert. Okay. I have to agree with her. All of these elements have symbolic significance. Gold is a symbol of kingship. Yeshua is king. Incense is a symbol of deity. Because what do you do at the temple?
Oh, true.
You burn incense
The
at
Levites.
the Holy of Holies. The Levites, the high priest. Or in this case, the chosen priest.
But he was a Levite, though.
Yeah. Yeshua is God. Myrrh is a symbol of death and sacrifice. Yeshua is the final sacrifice for sin. While the first line of the popular Christmas carol, "We Three Kings of Orient Are," is not biblical, the last line is correct: God and King and sacrifice. It is the mention of 3 gifts that led to the assumption that these were the 3 wise men. However, more than one person can give the same gift. The concept of giving gifts to the Messiah has a Jewish frame of reference. Matthew's description of the Magi's bearing of gifts relates directly to the Old Testament prophecy and the current of Messianic expectation. Matthew 2:15 quotes Hosea 11:1 in speaking of Mary and Joseph's flight to Egypt. The rabbinic sages attach this verse to the discussion of the Messiah as the second Moses. Out of Egypt I have called my son. Again, yeah, that's true. Many Old Testament passages have a messianic connotation or were clearly identified by the rabbis as speaking about the Messiah mentions the giving of gifts to him. Psalm 68:29, Psalm 72:10-11, which we read earlier, Psalm 76:11, and Isaiah 65, again, which we read earlier, are examples of this. The Isaiah passage in particular speaks of the nations bringing their wealth, a notion confirmed again. Even though the wise men were told by Herod to come back to Jerusalem and to let him know who the child was, God warned them in a dream not to go and do so. And they returned to Babylon in a different route, bypassing Jerusalem, and they did not report to Herod the Great. Again, and I want to just stop here on these gifts and just open up the dialogue that how could these magi be Gentiles? Where is the evidence? Where is the proof? Dr. Arnold Fruchtenbaum points a particular passage that may lead to the Babylonians being the so-called magi and astrologers, but he does not actually talk about the distance or the time that took them to travel the great distance.
Right.
He doesn't talk about the fact that God doesn't speak to Gentiles in dreams
Right.
like he did to the Magi. And in essence, this is something also concerning the gifts. Because where would the where is the greatest or the best quality gold found? Lisa?
The best quality gold on earth and the most in all of
Is
history
in Havilah.
Havilah, also known as Ophir,
Ophir.
Sheba, Tarshish. Today we call it the Philippines because the Spanish took over, King Philip.
Yeah, so the gold is one thing. What about the incense?
The incense, the best incense in all of earth, is not from what we would call frankincense because franc is an insert.
For
It's
Frank,
not from
the
France.
French, yeah.
It's not from
French
France.
wasn't a nation at the time.
But they try to put that in so we don't try to figure out where the incense actually came from.
Because the
best
French have the
incense is
market
in-
on the incense because they make all these so-called perfumes and colognes.
Right.
Right.
But where do they get their incense from?
Exactly.
It's not grown in their country.
Not
It's
found
only
in it.
grown in one country, and that's also what we call the Philippines today.
No fear.
The almug tree, also known as the Nara tree.
Yep.
Okay, and then we have the myrrh, which is also a product of the almug tree, a
Mhm.
different form of the sap.
Right.
So there's all three are native, and it's totally it's kind of easy to prove it out because there some people try to say, oh well, it came from Yemen or it came from, but no, no country has all three.
No.
Like first you could just go with gold, but yes. Today, South Africa does have kind of like a large amount of gold on the market.
Well, a lot of countries have gold, but not the quality.
Yeah,
and,
it's
and
not
the
the
amount
quality and the history.
in the history.
Like
yeah.
in all of history, no country
Well,
is the
yeah.
same amount.
Yeah, exactly. So, you have to think it out, think these arguments and these questions out, and come to your own resolution of who the Magi are. But with that, I actually want to pass the teaching over to my wife.
There's a question though from Shay. He said, okay, that would also depend what your opinion was on what the Orient is. I believe the Middle East was considered part of the Orient at one time, was it? Okay, well look up the word Orient and it actually
Well-
means the Far East.
Well,
But they changed it to try to confuse everybody and call it the Middle East, which is crazy because it's not even close to the East.
no, okay,
the Far
wait.
East is way, way at the ends of the earth.
Shay's right. When you look at, you have universities, okay, that talk about Oriental studies, and that does include the Middle East. You are right, Shay. But the Orient is far more than just the Middle East. It expands eastward, all the way to the Far East, okay?
Right
And that's
before
where-
the international date line,
Yes,
where
that's-
the sun rises.
and this is where the sun rises.
Right.
Okay. And why does the sun rise only on the east or the Far East? Because it's not a heliocentric planet.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
not a globe.
That's
it's a
the other
flat Earth.
deception.
Yeah, because if you say it starts in the east and Japan and the Philippines are the first countries to see the sun coming from the east, well, who gives them the right to be the first if it's a heliocentric model?
Yeah, exactly.
know?
Where is it rising from?
Yeah, where's it rising
If it's
from?
like 92 million miles away and floating around the universe, like it makes no sense.
rise in the east and set in the west.
But
It-
Shay is correct, though, about
Yeah.
the fact that Oriental studies begins with the Middle East, but goes all the way to the Far East.
Right.
Okay, so again, and that makes it a really broad study, but
Because it's a
Oriental studies is the term.
Yeah, look on any map and look how much land that actually is from the Middle East all the way to where the sun rises. Like that's considered the East. But if you want Far East, like
Yeah.
the Orient actually means the Far East because sailors would orient themselves
Yeah.
by looking at the furthest east where the sun rises, and then they would measure where they're going to be traveling from there. That's why you want to be oriented by the international date line at the Far East where the sun rises.
When it comes to also people worshiping, I mentioned that Dr. Arnold Fruchtenbaum mentioned that this is the first signs of Jewish and Gentile worship of the Messiah. Actually, the true worship of outside of the so-called nation of Israel starts in the book of Acts.
Mm.
You know, where the information of the Messiah is now being shared by the apostles in the book of Acts with the so-called Samaritans and then with the Gentiles. Remember, it's a three-stage missionary teaching that starts with the Jews, goes to the Samaritans, and then to the Gentiles.
Right.
And why the
Exactly.
Samaritans? This is another question that you need to ask
That's
yourself.
another rabbit trail. Why the Samaritans?
No. Honestly, because the Samaritans is the nation of Israel. Okay, what remnant is found to be living in the Samaria, which is again those left over from the Assyrian conquer of the northern kingdom, 722 BC.
Mm.
Those when they were released, a lot of the so-called Israelites went to other places, not necessarily back home. And so, and when you do the study, the so-called Samaritans from the northern Israel, are to be found in northern Israel and in Galilee, or Galil, as the Hebrews would call it, which is where Yeshua had his ministry. He is called a Galilean, the southern part of the
Yeah, you did a whole study on that.
yeah.
Yeah, just like a couple months ago. Yeah.
So a lot to take in, a lot to consider.
All right,
So
do
now
you
I
wanna
pass it on to
switch-
Lisa.
Do you want to
Yeah.
switch places, or you
Sure.
want to just move the table? Whatever's
we can
easier
move.
for you.
We'll just move the table.
Okay. And I need to put this on something so it's up a little bit higher.
Okay, here.
All right. So a lot of you knew, or maybe you don't know, last year I was part of a composing a book with our friends Tim and Anna Schwab in the Philippines, and it was the fastest book that I've ever been a part of writing. I can't believe how fast. Tim used to work for a publishing company, so when he wants to write a book, he does it like we did that thing in like less than 2 months, and it's so much information. So if you'd like to read this book for free, you could go to, I think I saw Tammy put the link up there in the chat, thegodculture.com, and just click on Mystery of the Three Kings. If you want to read along with me, you can go over there. I'm going to go over chapter 4 with the time that we have left today. I think we have like half an hour. And chapter 4 is what the title of our class is, or what that came from. That magi is not a word from the Greek, as we have been taught. Isaac, can you put it up on the screen here? So if you want to go there, if you'd like to purchase this book, paper copy, you can find it on Amazon. It's really kind of hard to find
Can
because
we make it bigger?
I don't know how to do
Oh,
that.
let me do it.
I just want to make sure I'm able to still.
Yes, I'm gonna
Okay.
keep this thing.
But you can also find it on Amazon. Look up Mystery of the Three Kings, or you can look up the God Culture. This is published. Oh, thank you. This is published by the God Culture. I was the editor of it.
Wait, I just did something.
Oh
What
no.
did I do?
You can get it back by.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah.
Okay. But yes, the God Culture
that's nice.
is the one that published it, and that was through Amazon. They also have it on their website if
Where
you'd
is
like
it?
to buy it. Okay,
Where's
did
your
you close
icon?
Safari?
No, I didn't. It's open.
Okay, no, it's
Safari's
under
open.
Safari.
Yeah, Safari's open.
Yeah, so you have to go to this little arrow.
It's right here.
And it's there.
Okay.
There.
All right.
Okay, so Noble's trying to make it big so you guys can see and read along with me. But I had a really good time putting this together. This all started when I brought along the book called Revelation of the Magi, which Zen had recommended, and it's also included, just a summary of it is in the New Testament Apocrypha. So I said, I'm just going to buy the book so I don't want to just read a summary that somebody else did. I want to see like all the background and everything and who the translator was and what they did. So it's a very thin book, but you can find it on eBay. I found mine for like less than $20 if you want to get Revelation of the Magi. But this is an excerpt, chapter 4, from the book Mystery of the Three Kings. So if you can check the chat and see if there's any questions, that would be good.
Okay.
All right, so this is chapter 4. Magi is not a word from the Greek. You can see it's very well illustrated. The birth of the sun, no sorcerers allowed. All right, so I was the editor of this. I also interjected quite a bit of information, and then Tim put it together. So thank you, Tim and Anna. So when you see this ROTM, that's from Revelation of the Magi, the books. That's a quote. 1 verse 2. An account of the revelations and the visions which the kings, sons of kings of the great east spoke, who were called magi in the language of that land. Okay, this is key. Because in silence, without a sound, they glorified and they prayed. Sorry, I need to have this a little higher. This will hurt my back. There we go. Okay. One of the greatest revelations needed from Revelation of the Magi, there's ROTM, is that the word magi or magos from the wise king's narrative does not originate in the Greek language. Greece is not east. We just talked about this. The same could be said of Africa, which some scholars try to force. But for this to work, one must forget what direction both left and right are. Those are not theories. Yes, it is written in Greek in the New Testament, as the rest of the canonical books are, but is it Greek in origin? What if instead there was evidence that the word derives from its land and its language of nativity? It turns out there is, thanks to this text. How many times have we all heard the Christmas sermon about how the wise men were not kings? That is false. They certainly were kings. In all, or 12 in all. There were more than 3 in number indeed, but 3 still has precedence, as you will find. Then, even the highest of scholars takes us to the faulty assumption the Babylonian and or Persian magoi are injected by the Gospel of Matthew. That's the one that Noble just read. They ignore that those magoi were not even in power in the 1st century. They are still rebuked as satanic sorcerers in the same New Testament. One does not need to go to the Old Testament to learn how to read a word well defined in the New. They are changing the Bible when they do so against its own interpretation itself. They will make up fiction, supposing the sorcerers converted to the religion of Daniel. That is not ever a Bible account. It is poor assumption they cannot make. The fact that they have to manufacture such a story to make their lie work should be evident. Certainly, Daniel was the head over the biblical wise men, such as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, but sorcerers were his satanic enemy. For a theologian to assume such a thing is nonsense. Daniel never became head of the magicians. He was head of the Sophos, the wise men. Were the Magi sorcerers? Imagine the assertion that Yahweh informed very few of the birth of his son, and of those, the top of the list were satanic sorcerers, not even worthy as Herod. It is obvious that the invitation list sounds skewed. Even the Pharisees were not notified for the same reason no satanic sorcerer was. They were the ones who confused and reckoned the Magi as Magianism falsely, which fraudulent label only occurs one time in rebuke in the revelation of the Magi, because it was not the origin of their name. Magi, which is not Greek. That title originated in their homeland in the Far East, and linguistics prove this fact to be accurate. However, now that we know the word Magi has no connection to the satanic cult from Babylon and Persia, but originates in their own land, we can fully discount that any scholar repeating that nonsense is not representing a Bible position, intended or not. Daniel's wise men were not Magi. The Apostle Matthew's use of the Greek word magos, translated as wise men in Matthew 2:1, 2:7, and 2:16, is not the same as Daniel's enemies called the Magi. If that is considered church doctrine, it is so untested. Anything any denomination espouses that it does not test remains suspect until proven. No one credible reading and summarizing ancient texts has concluded this strange new view. So here's in Greek, you can see magos, or Magiism, or Magian, Oriental scientist, by implication a magician, sorcerer, wise men. The reference to the book of Daniel's wise men of Daniel 5 verse 8, for instance, is not magos. Daniel uses the Hebrew word hakim, which is a general term for those considered to hold knowledge above the regular folk. Taking that generality and assuming it into Matthew's wise men is illiterate. However, he rattles off others in a listing that separates them. The king's wise men that are described in the book of Daniel were not the Magi described in the book of Matthew. Even the era is very disconnected, as those Magi had no part in the New Testament except as enemies. One who supposedly converted to the biblical faith would no longer be called a sorcerer. They would have to leave that satanic paradigm. The wise men described in the book of Daniel, however, are not magos in Greek. According to the Greek Septuagint translation, the word sophos, meaning wise, not even magos. It would not matter, however, if it was the same word. It most certainly is not the same concept in the book of Matthew. Indeed, among those the king considered wise could definitely be sorcerers. However, They are still not called magos by Daniel in the Greek Septuagint. They are still called sophos instead in Daniel 2, 12, 13, 14, 18, 24, 27, and 48. Matthew's gospel repeats that in 23 verse 34 using sophos as well, referring to prophets, wise men, and scribes. Daniel does not even call them magos. To equate that term solely based on a misunderstanding of a different word is not scholarship. So here you can see there's the Hebrew, which is hakim, meaning wise men, and the Greek is sophos, also meaning wise men. All right, so here is where the confusion sets in. The only other time the New Testament Greek uses this word magos outside of the 4 times in the Gospel of Matthew for these kings who brought gifts to the Messiah is in the book of Acts. That was written by Luke, not Matthew. In Acts 13, verse 6 and 8, Luke, the author of the book of Acts, rebukes a false prophet, identifying him with the term magos. Somehow, scholars miss the term false and then attempt to placate an inept view that never belongs in any Bible discussion. Therefore, not only do scholars use the wrong term, but even the general term magos, or wise men, as sorcerers from Persia of Babylon. Note, Babylon is not even on the list of the 3 kings, even. This group of holy men honored their covenant relationship with Yahweh by bringing the Messiah gifts directly from the estate of Adam in their homeland. They should not be defined by one guy who is a false one, as scholars assume a false word use in the book of Daniel that is not even there. If Daniel did in fact convert sorcerers to his faith, they would never assume the title of magicians and sorcerers again. This was about 500 years later, when the Greeks already conquered Persia and the Romans conquered the Greeks. Those sorcerers had no bearing on this account, and the word magi, used in the book of Daniel, is not associated whatsoever with the use in the book of Acts, nor does it derive from the Greek language. The word is from the land of the nativity of the kings. Now we're going to go to the Psalm 72 that we read from earlier. We're going to restore the geography of Psalm 72 as well as revelation of the Magi, and then we'll see it's very obvious. The wall of objections comes crashing to the ground. How could a scholar such as the translator recognize this word originates in Southeast Asia? Because in Revelation of the Magi, the translator, Brent Landau, even says this word originates in China, is what he's saying it came from. But then he does not bother to research the ancient royal class or the words for prayer or silence in said languages. All 3 connotations in the Philippines derive from the word magi. That's actually how you're supposed to say it. That is impossible, they will say. Indeed, we agree it can only be possible if it is the truth. What is truly inconceivable is they remain illiterate. Okay, this is Tim. This is willingly, and many of those scholars will scorn and scoff. Okay, so he's going on about the scholars. All right, now we're going to look down here. The Filipino ancient royal class known as the magi. Okay, whenever you see this word, it's not magi, it is magi. Because it even says this is what they were called in their native language. What if the Philippines actually had a documented social class of royals known as the magi in their native ancient language? Of course, that would be impossible. Okay, it does occur. Filipinos already knew what we are conveying, as there is an ancient royal classification known as the Maginoo. And you'll see that in Mangkulis's name, and here he changed it to Maginoo Kulas.
Oh.
This was the highest social order, which included what one would refer to as kings and princes. So the Revelation of the Magi tells us these were kings, sons of kings, and wise men. It's really not that difficult. So here's Maginoo here. Tagalog means gentleman, gentlemanly, honorable. Maginoohin, of gentlemanly habits or bearing. There's the root, Ginoo, Mr., Sir, gentleman. The female counterpart is Ginang. Pagka Maginoo is Tagalog, means the quality of being noble. That's you, honey. You're a Maginoo, your name.
Oh, no.
The quality of being noble,
I'm a maggot?
worthy, or stately. Magi.
Magio no.
Okay, so this is before the Spanish arrived. The use is recorded in 1571 and 1690. It is recorded in the 1st century by the Apostle Matthew, who used the Greek language to express a word that was not of Greek origin. So he was translating Tagalog into Greek. Can you believe that? 1571. Plasencia translates Lord God as Panginoon Dios, and one of the leaders who surrendered the port of Manila in 1571 was Maginoo Marlanaway. So there it is right there. 1690. Three kinds and classes of people. The chiefs, whom the Visayans called Dato, and the Tagalogs Maginoo. The Tamawas, who are also ordinary common people, called Maharlika. That's the name that they're trying to change the Philippines to. They want to change it back from, King Philip was however long ago with the Spanish.
Right.
They want to be called the Maharlika. Among the Tagalogs, and the slaves are called Oripuen by the Visayans and Alipin by the Tagalogs. So then 1690, the penalty of death was never imposed by process of law except when the murderer and his victim were common men and had no gold, which is very rare in the Philippines if you have no gold. In such a case, if the man's dato or maginoo, for these are one and the same, did not kill him, the other chiefs did, spearing him after lashing him to a stake. Is there any comments?
No.
I'm going to read. All right, this also proves the Maginoo were not a Muslim class, as some have attempted to claim, because it predates the migrations of Muslims into the Philippines for more than 1,000 years after the Revelation of the Magi was written. And we could say the Magi was written. Islam did not exist yet, okay? Islam, for those of you who don't know, was created by the Roman Catholic Church. Filipino word for prayer derives from Magi. However, the scoffing academic, okay, this is Tim, he gets upset with the academics, so we're just going to skip parts of this here. In Tagalog, the national Filipino language, the prefix mag is used in magdasal. Magdasal is commonly known, everybody knows in Philippines, that means to pray. Mag and magi are the origin, the root words, with a plethora of combinations in linguistics, which identify even other traits of the ancient Magi Filipino. So here's mag, this is the root word. To do something, to do an occupation, to go, to use something, to wear something. So magdasal means to pray. Magaampo, to pray. Magampo, in Visayan, is to surrender. Now look at this. Here's the Filipino word for silence. So if you read the Revelation of the Magi, you'll see that these Maginoo, these men were known, other people thought they were kind of a little strange sometimes, but the way that they prayed was very common for them, was they were silent. They just lifted their hands to the sky and they were silent. They prayed. And they would do that for quite a long time. So there's the Filipino ibang word, and the Ibanag word. Ibanag is another, there's hundreds of dialects in the Philippines. So Ibanag, the word for remain silent, which also begins with magi. It includes other associations as well. We reached out to a bunch of different friends who are in the Philippines that spoke these different dialects to make sure that we were getting it right here. The Ibanag tribe originates in northern Luzon, where the entrance to the Cagayan River is known in their local language as that of many priests, Apari. Notice one of the names of the Magi, according to Revelation of the Magi, is Gudafar, which appears too similar to ignore, and there is an apparent association with the word Ophir. You add the Ari at the end of that word, and it would render as watering Ophir. So that's Apari, or like Afari, which is Ophir with the R at the end. Any comments?
No.
Okay. So we're gonna. If you want to read this on your own, I'm not going to go over every single thing
you
here.
can just get the book.
But I'd like to go to this list of words. So you can see here the definition of the Magi word for silence, exactly spelled. So there's Magi Mamo in Ibanag, that means to remain silent. Now, there's a family of Tagalog words. I just want to go over this list because it's crazy how many times the word mag is used. You can look at this. I'm not going to read through all of these, but just look how many words they have that have to do with being silent or praying or to do something alone. They all start with the word mag. It's always to do something. And you can see that, just look at this list of words. If you want to screenshot and read this later, there's just like so many words. I'm going to continue here. Just crazy. All the words start with mag. All right. Yeah,
Okay,
you see
I think
all
you're
these.
making a point on mag.
Okay, so you guys get it? You guys get it that this
Yeah,
word
we can
mag.
move on already.
All right. So I just want to touch on really quick. I have a picture here you can see. So this is an illustration of the Magi generations. Now look at what they're wearing on their neck. This is ancient Filipinos before the Spanish. This is actually drawn by Pigafetta, who is a scribe for Magellan, the explorer that they saw all the gold and just like, we have to go to that country and take it over. So note all of this, like you see these things on this guy's legs. These are huge gold bands that they're wearing. His dagger, solid gold. His necklaces, solid woven gold. Look at this right here. Now, if you think, oh, they look Egyptian, the Egyptians got these from the Filipinos, okay? Because the Egyptians traded with them. Everybody was going there to get the gold. They were all going to the land of Ophir, also known as Christ, also known as, Sheba, Tarshish. They look at it on his head. Like, they're wearing like millions of dollars worth of gold. Look at her wrist. She's got these little bands. Her decoration on her clothes, all of this is solid gold. Like you can just see, this is like crazy amounts of gold. And again, in this chapter, here's some more Magi or Mag references. So in other words, just as the Magi represent the entire archipelago of ancient Ophir, Sheba, and Tarshish, they survive in origin in the prominent languages in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao, just as the revelation of the Magi documents, or Magi. This alone, along with the many verifiable truths in the document, prove it to be valid. If we had the written history of the Vatican trashed illegally and immorally, revelation of the Magi would be there. Because what happened is when the Spanish went in there, they wanted to erase these people's history. They did not want them to know they were the ancient Hebrews. They did not want them to know that they were the descendants of the Magi or the Magi No'o. They wanted to just take over their education system, burn all of their documents. Only like a very few survive, which is why I feel so blessed. Like when Noble and me went there and we talked to the Askaya tribe, and they have their own copy of their Book of Enoch. So we're like, wow, if we could get that translated to English, we could compare it with the Ethiopian one. We could compare it with the one from the Dead Sea Scrolls. And they've had this all along. It's just that the powers that be, the elite, do not want people to know how valuable their land is. All right, so let's see if there's anything else. Here's some things about frankincense and myrrh in the Philippines, just to kind of back up what we said earlier. Jeremiah 6, verse 20. To what purpose cometh there to me incense? Could be frankincense, but we know frank is an insert. From Sheba, and the sweet cane from a far country. Your burnt offerings are not acceptable, nor your sacrifices sweet unto me. First, the prophet Jeremiah defines biblical frankincense as originating in a land that also has sugar cane. Ethiopia had no ancient application of native sugar cane until the 16th century. Therefore, though its incense is valuable and a fine substitute indeed, it is not the origin of biblical frankincense. The Philippines has had frankincense and sugar cane since ancient times, even before King Solomon's era. And this sugarcane has been cultivated by smallholder farmers since the 16th century in Ethiopia. So in other words, Ethiopia, yes, they do have sugarcane now, but they didn't until the 16th century. Right? And then just to go over some of the other, I'm not going to go through every single one here, but they also call the almug tree the elemi. This is what I was talking about. The Philippines has called the poor man's frankincense. It's due to not being blessed by illiterate rabbis, Tim says. It is cheaper. So there's the Manila elemi. This is the one that's from the Nara tree, that also known as the almug tree. And you can see how the frankincense and the myrrh come from the same tree. The gum elemi, also known as the pili tree, that we get nuts from this particular tree. And it's related to frankincense, myrrh, and all the different families that it's related to. And so the variety of frankincense is also myrrh. So you can see this. Science has now tested both frankincense and myrrh found in ancient Egypt. It tests scientifically as elemi and not what we call these today. In other words, the Philippine frankincense and myrrh from the pili tree qualify as both biblical spices. So that's that Nara, what they call it, the national tree. They have these things that Noel and I like to eat called pili nuts from that. They're super delicious. And then, so anyway, there is no other way to view the account of the Magi. They did not originate in Persia, India, and Arabia. They were never named Melchior, Caspar, and Balthazar, and there were more than 3. They were never magicians and sorcerers, but from a holy biblical priesthood. Their label was never Babylonian or Persian, but originates in the land of their nativity in the Philippines, which proves to be fact. All right, so these are just the linguistics of the word. Then
Okay.
it goes
I think they
more.
get the idea.
Yeah, so in other words, this is the false depiction of what the Maginoa look like. They weren't white, okay? They did not come from Babylon, and they did not look like that, all right? There was not only 3 of them. So this is from Catholic-generated art. And you can see over here, this is one of the ancient maps. This from 650, the Ravenna map. They knew the extreme east was the islands of paradise. They even have labeled here, look over here, Paradisos, and here's the 4 rivers of Eden right here. And this is located right next to Argyre, which is known as Tarshish, and Christ, which is also known as Ophir in Hebrew. These are in Greek. You can see China is right here. This is just like a little excerpt from this huge map over here. So, yeah, and look at Revelation of the Magi, chapter 2, verse 4. These are kings, sons of eastern kings in the land of Shir, which is the outer part of the entire east of the world at the ocean, the great sea beyond the world, that place in which dwelt Adam. So what does that tell you? Where did Adam live? He lived in the land of Havilah, which is in Genesis chapter 2. All right, so I'm not going to continue. That was chapter 4. If you want to read the rest of this book, you're more than welcome to do so. So I'm done with the
Slides.
slides, yes.
All right.
All right, we're back.
Back to the living.
So, any comments, questions, anything else like that?
I wasn't keeping up.
Oh, okay. All righty.
So if you guys have any questions or comments later, just email it to Lisa, Hebrew Hawaiian.
Thank you guys for hanging in there with us.
Yeah. I will never mention the word Magi to Lisa again. I'm all magged out.
Mag, everything is mag.
I'm magged out.
Magino Okula says Philippines is a neighbor of China. In fact, the oldest Chinatown outside China in the world is the Philippines. Yes, exactly, in Manila, I believe. Yes, Magino Okulas.
So
All right, and yes, you're right, DKNY. Many Filipinos are also part Chinese. They traded so often, and they're just neighbors right there.
I'm not.
He's not.
I still squeak though.
He's a
They say-
mixed breed.
They say Chinese, Jews, and Filipinos are very tight in money, so they squeak.
Oh yeah, you're right, Magino. Yeah, Chinese trade with the Philippines, and some migrated to have families with Filipinos. Thus, Filipinos look Chinese. Yeah, you're right. Our friends even have the last name, Chinese last names. Like do you remember our driver's last name from Davao City? He had a Chinese last name, Eric Go or something, Goh. He had like a Chinese last name.
Oh,
But
okay.
yeah, so they did. They mingled. Our friend Foy, she admits her family's part
The
Chinese.
green is always, the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. And the Chinese says, "Oh, look at all that green Filipino grass.
Yeah,
Let's jump the
exactly.
fence."
Bunch of bot shibas over there.
So, thanks for joining us, guys. Well, are we teaching? We're teaching next month too. Yeah, it's a five Saturdays.
Yeah,
this month, right?
yeah, next week you're teaching,
Yeah,
right?
so
I'll probably be a little bit late next week. But
yeah,
Noble will be
Lisa's
teaching.
gonna be doing some more business again.
I'll be helping Kaylee out again, just
Yeah, they're
like I
gonna be
did
doing
last
monkey
month.
business.
No.
Okay? Yes, they are. Isaac and I are gonna be just here, I guess, maybe.
Yeah,
So-
you guys are running it next week. Isaac said no.
Yeah.
Yes, he'll be there.
I gotta work.
Oh, next week, Saturday?
Yep.
What time?
Time.
Oh, but you can help him get set up at least, right?
Yeah, doing
Okay.
that.
Okay.
So we'll see you guys in a week's time. Thank you again. We'll keep the prayer requests alive and going. Pray for that short list that we have. And again, we hope that everybody will be feeling better, getting well, or whatever the situation is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks again for joining us.
Did you want to close in prayer?
All right.
Okay. Go
That's
ahead.
right. El Elyon, El Shaddai, Abba, Father, we thank you so much for, again, being our God. We are just so blessed to have you as our leader, to have you show us the way, to take care of us and watch over us. Even when things don't seem to be going right, there's a reason behind it. And we know that you know the reason, and we just need to be patient to see the outcome. So for whatever struggles we're going through, hardships, temptations, Lord, help us through, see us through, that we will, Lord, again, be shining bright, Lord, knowing that we trust in you. Pretty much that's it. Forgive us again for our sins. Watch over our week, Lord. Keep us safe and protected as we again, Lord, seek to follow you throughout the rest of our lives. We pray this in Yeshua's name. We all say
Amen.
amen and amen. Thank you to Isaac, our media guy,
Yeah,
our son.
he's running low on gas.
Yeah, he's tired.
Trying to stay awake.
Thanks to my wife Lisa for doing all the work she does, and again, thank you to all of you.
Yeah,
Kaylee
thank you
and
for all your teaching.
for Kaylee also and Ayla, Lord,
Yeah.
they are a vibrant and vigorous part of our ministry. Thank you for watching over them as well and all their input, and to all of you again for being a part of our family.
If you'd like to support us, we don't normally take cash donations, but you can always go to Sacred Word Publishing, or you can look at our website that Kaylee's put up. And this is what I'm wearing today, the EMF blocker. It'll help to guard your body from all of the EMF junk that's floating around. That's why I wear it now. 'cause there's
frequencies.
all kind of frequencies in this room.
Yeah.
But we love you guys. Thank you again to all our moderators for helping keep the chat friendly and
To
sharing
our
all those
friends.
cool links for us. We appreciate you guys.
Happy birthday, Leonard.
Yeah, happy birthday.
God bless
All
you
right,
guys.
Shaloha.
Take care.